Every person you've ever met is performing, not necessarily with bad intent, not necessarily dishonestly, but every human being you encounter is managing an impression, presenting a version of themselves calibrated to the audience, the context, and what they need that interaction to produce. The manipulator, the narcissist, the person with a hidden agenda, they are performing specifically for you, and they are very good at it. But no performance is perfect. Every person leaks the truth, in the flash of an expression they couldn't control, in the gap between what they say and what they do, in the behavioral patterns that appear only when they think you're not paying attention. Today, we learn how to read those leaks, not with certainty. Certainty is a trap. With calibrated accuracy, with the skill to see what's actually there beneath the performance. Before we go anywhere, let's establish what the research actually shows. Because popular culture has distorted this field significantly. Human lie detection accuracy. Meta-analyses consistently find approximately 54% accuracy, barely above chance. Even trained interrogators, customs officers, and law enforcement professionals perform no better than chance in controlled studies when attempting to detect deception from behavioral signals alone. Why? Because there is no single reliable indicator of deception. Every behavioral signal commonly associated with lying, gaze aversion, increased blinking, touching the face, overlaps completely with innocent anxiety. The nervous, honest person looks identical to the composed, dishonest one by most popular metrics. This does not mean reading people is impossible. It means it requires a different approach than popular accounts suggest. Reading people accurately is not about detecting single signals and drawing certain conclusions. It is about building probabilistic models from multiple converging signals, observed across time and across contexts. Single data points mean almost nothing. Patterns across 20 interactions tell you a great deal. The single most important concept in reading people accurately is baseline. And it is almost entirely absent from popular accounts of body language and behavioral reading. A baseline is how this specific individual behaves when they are comfortable, relaxed, and under no particular social pressure. Every meaningful behavioral signal you will ever read is meaningful only relative to that person's individual baseline. Because people are radically different from each other, one person's natural eye contact level will register as evasive in someone who typically maintains direct gaze. One person's natural stillness would appear suspicious in someone who typically gestures constantly. Without a baseline, you are navigating without reference points. With a baseline, every deviation becomes a genuine signal. How to establish it? Observe in low stakes, comfortable early interactions. Watch how someone responds to casual questions they have no reason to be defensive about. Note their natural gesture frequency, eye contact pattern, speech pace, and vocal rhythm in ordinary conversation. Note their general expressiveness level. This is your calibration point. Everything you read later will be read against this. Now that we have the foundation, we can look at the specific tells used by manipulators, which we'll break down in just a few minutes. Let's cover the nonverbal signals that have genuine research support, and be honest about what each one actually tells you. Micro-expressions. Paul Ekman's decades of cross-cultural research identified 7 universal facial expressions that flash involuntarily across the face in a fraction of a second, too fast to consciously control. Happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, contempt, and surprise. Contempt, one corner of the mouth briefly raised, signaling superiority and disgust simultaneously, is the most significant in dark psychology contexts. It appears as a micro-expression, even when the person is overtly performing warmth. It is consistently associated in relationship research with the most damaging interpersonal dynamics. You register micro-expressions unconsciously. That something is off feeling you get from someone when you can't articulate what is often your brain's unconscious micro-expression detection, reporting something that your conscious evaluation hasn't processed yet. Trust it. Think about the last time you had a gut feeling about someone. This is likely why. Foot direction. We have remarkably little conscious control over our feet. They point toward people and places we want to be with and want to go. In group dynamics, watching where people's feet point, regardless of where their faces point, reveals genuine engagement and genuine alliance. The person facing you but with feet angled toward the door is done with the conversation before they've said so. Vocal deviations from baseline. Under suppressed stress or concealment, speech pace typically accelerates and pitch rises from baseline. When delivering rehearsed or manufactured content, there is often a characteristic flatness, a reduction in the natural rhythm variation of authentic speech. Both are deviations you learn to hear only by knowing the person's baseline first. The self-soothing gesture cluster. Under genuine stress being actively suppressed, the body self-soothes, touching the neck, face, or lips, rubbing the arms, compressed lips, a leg that bounces. These are reliable stress signals, not deception signals. What matters is their trigger. If these responses appear in response to a specific topic and resolve when the topic changes, the topic is significant. But even if someone manages to control their physical leaks, their choice of words often gives them away. This is where verbal statement analysis comes in. Verbal content carries as much signal as body language, sometimes more. Most people focus their impression management on how they look. They are less careful about what their words reveal. Statement analysis. Research by forensic specialists and former FBI analysts identifies specific linguistic patterns associated with concealment, excessive qualification before answering, to be perfectly honest with you. Distancing language, that person instead of a name in first-person accounts. Unusual hedging around specific details that would be expected to be clear. And answers that are technically responsive but don't actually answer the question asked. Unprompted denial. Genuine denials are typically direct and responsive to an accusation that has been made. Manipulators frequently produce denials of things that haven't been accused yet. I have nothing to hide. I would never do something like that. When the denial comes before any accusation, it is information about what they're already thinking about. Pronoun patterns. Research by psychologist James Pennebaker on pronoun use. People who use fewer first-person singular pronouns, I, me, my, in their accounts of events they participated in, tend to be psychologically distancing themselves from those events. Precision asymmetry. Authentic accounts are typically detailed about some things and vague about others in ways that reflect genuine memory. Manufactured accounts often show unusual precision about certain details, those that were rehearsed, and unusual vagueness about others, those that weren't. Spotting the asymmetry requires knowing what level of detail is reasonable for the context. Single interactions are unreliable. Behavioral patterns across time are where genuine character becomes visible. In dark psychology contexts specifically, several behavioral patterns are diagnostic. How they treat people who cannot benefit them. Service staff, junior colleagues, strangers in transactional encounters. This behavior, when the incentive to perform warmth is absent, is the most accurate character signal you can observe. Dark triad individuals often show significant gaps between their treatment of high-value targets and everyone else. Consistency across contexts. High-functioning narcissists, Machiavellians, and psychopaths are often strikingly different people in different settings, extraordinarily charming with new contacts, noticeably colder with long-established ones, warm in public, controlling in private, different personas for different audiences. These inconsistencies become visible only through observation across multiple contexts. Response to limits. When you say no, clearly and reasonably, the response is diagnostic. A person who accepts a limit with disappointment but without retribution is telling you something. A person who responds to a reasonable refusal with rage, guilt deployment, persistent pressure, or silent withdrawal is telling you something different. Whether stories evolve consistently, people who are managing a narrative tell stories that shift across tellings. Details change, timelines adjust, framing morphs based on the audience. Track the consistency of important stories across multiple tellings over time. In dark psychology contexts, the most practically important reading skill is detecting when someone's stated purpose in an interaction is not their actual purpose. Strategic contact timing. People with hidden agendas tend to initiate contact when they need something and go quiet when they don't. Map the correlation between their warmth and their needs. If contact consistently intensifies before a request and cools after it's fulfilled or declined, you're looking at a pattern. Disproportionate interests in specific information. Machiavellian individuals are skilled intelligence gatherers. Questions that seem casual but consistently probe your vulnerabilities, your relationships, your resources, or your fears are not intimacy. They are reconnaissance. Genuine curiosity about people ranges across their whole lives. Strategic information gathering clusters around specific categories. The gift that creates obligation. Generosity from people with hidden agendas is almost always an investment, rather than a gift. It creates reciprocity pressure that will be leveraged later. Notice whether favors correlate with subsequent requests. Perfect mirroring. Someone who seems to share every value, every interest, every perspective you hold, who agrees with you constantly, who seems to perfectly reflect your worldview back to you, may be doing exactly that. Manufactured rapport through precise mirroring produces the feeling of extraordinary compatibility from what is actually manufactured reflection. Reading people is a trainable skill. Here are the practices that build it. Watch interviews on mute, political press conferences, documentary footage, recorded testimony. Watch with audio off. Form your impressions of the emotional content and the congruence of the presentation. Then watch with audio. The exercise trains observation of nonverbal signals independently from verbal content. Active listening practice. Most people in conversation are preparing their next point while the other person is still talking. Practice complete presence, not just to what is being said, but to the rhythm, the emphasis, the emotional texture, and the things that are conspicuously absent. What people don't address is often as informative as what they do. Generate hypotheses, not conclusions. In any interaction, form multiple possible explanations for what you observe. Not they're lying. They might be concealing something, or they might be anxious, or this topic carries emotional weight for them. Hold the hypotheses loosely. Look for evidence that narrows the field. This habit produces calibration. Premature certainty produces bias. Observe group dynamics. In social settings, watch who defers to whom, regardless of formal hierarchy. Watch who people look toward when a decision needs to be made. Watch whose jokes get laughed at. The actual social hierarchy of a group is often very different from the official one, and it becomes visible if you're watching for it. Everything in this video rests on one foundational principle. The best readers of people are not those with the most certain reads. They are those with the most calibrated uncertainty. Overconfidence in reading people is itself a vulnerability because it closes you to new information and makes you manipulable by people who understand your heuristics and know how to manage them. The genuinely skilled reader holds their assessments as working hypotheses, accurate enough to act on, flexible enough to update. They are curious, not certain. They are watching, not concluding. That stance, open, observant, calibrated, is both the most accurate way to read people and the hardest posture for manipulators to game. Every person you meet is communicating far more than their words convey. Their baseline behavior, their deviations from it, the patterns across time, the gap between what they say and what they do. All of it is legible, not with certainty, but with practice, with patience, and with the discipline to observe rather than assume, with genuine accuracy. In dark psychology contexts, this skill is your first line of detection. You cannot defend against what you cannot see. Learning to see clearly, without paranoia, without premature certainty, is where real protection begins. If this was useful, share it.